I don't really like making videos about how bad reform has come, but this is a fall-off that needs to be studied. As Zia Yusuf says, the Financial Times are projecting that reform is going to gain 2,260 candidate seats at the local elections. Okay, should we have a look at who those candidates are? Because all the major parties were in a hurry to try to find people that were willing to stand as local councillors at the upcoming May the 7th elections. And reform seems to have filled its ranks of foreigners, not just naturalised first and second generation immigrants, but actual foreign nationals. And so I wanted to ask the people who are still members of reform, because again, reform and restores voter base basically a Venn diagram, almost an overlapping circle at this point. We kind of want the same ends for the country. We want mass deportations, demographic security, a prosperous economy, a kind of peaceful civilization that resembles Britain before the 1990s, that we can raise our own children. And is this what you want to vote for? For example, is Mr. Kabir Kerr in Yare and Necton who you want to vote for? Is this suite of candidates from Redbridge? Let's take a look. Rakesh Vasis, Madhuri Bandaru, Sunil Bali, Miki Dutta, Savan Vyas. Like, any of these people that you wanted to vote for when you thought, I'm going to vote for reform to lead the charge against the Uni Party? Our Nige will really stick it to them. We're going to ensure that immigration goes down. We're going to put the British people first. We're going to get our country back. By our, who did they mean? What about in Feltham, where you've got Kushwant Singh and Sukhjit Kaur in Hanworth, and Chinmay Paralakar in Feltham, Jag Jassal in Bedfont. Why should I be pronouncing these names reading reform leaflets? Why is this coming out of my mouth? Why, for example, why is this in Hounslow? Councillor Bandana Chopra. She was, what, Labour? Now she's joined Reform. It's clear there are members of the Indian subcontinent that have just jumped ship to whichever political vehicle seems to be the safest or most insurgent to try to farm Izzat, pad out their CV, pad out their LinkedIn, and be able to then use whichever vectors of Britain's political system are available to them to lobby for their ethnic, religious, communal interests. One great example is Heaton Ajwani. He is a Reform UK candidate in Heaton, Lostock and Chew Moor in the Bolton local election, not far from Richard Tice's seat. I did some digging into him. Turns out he is the head of the Bolton Hindu Forum, valuing Hinduism, good British value, and also previously was a Conservative candidate in 2022. This is just jumping aboard the reform bandwagon because it confers relative advantages to strivers from the Indian subcontinent. Speaking of, do you remember this chap? This is Adi Mo Azaduman, who was selected to stand in a Central South Sea seat in May. Councillor George Madgwick, who announced it on X, said that the comments that he got in response to standing him as a candidate were frankly disgusting. This guy came over as part of the Boris wave on a student visa from Bangladesh, told George that he plans to go and work in Dubai and then return to, quote, his homeland someday. But while he's here, he thought that he would meddle in Britain's political system by becoming a candidate for the local council in Portsmouth. Why? Well, if you object to this, Madgwick says you're a racist. He says, this is the kind of migration we want. People who come here, who are educated, who work full-time and pay taxes, people who integrate and help the community. He says that reform's selection process is the antidote to the far right. Basically, reform has to run, not just naturalised immigrants, but actual foreign nationals as candidates to prove they are not racist and far right. So, reform will continue selecting actual foreign nationals as candidates because he is now a candidate, it's official. You can vote for him, or you can vote for Lucy Bridgewater of the Green Party, or Mackenzie Cumming for the Conservatives, or Kate Dorrington for the Liberal Democrats, or George David Fielding for the Labour Party. So you can vote for English people in the other parties, or a Bangladeshi national for Reform UK. What is the point of reform? What is the point of reform when the anti-immigration party, which is the only reason people were voting for reform, are running actual foreigners as their candidates, and then all of the other parties are running English people while promising to increase immigration. Like, because Restore Britain are not running candidates at the local election because they're a brand new party, the only place they're running in is Great Yarmouth, which is Rupert's seat. I think that's a very prudent move because it, unlike Reform, who insisted they're going to run in the majority of seats, upwards of 99%, which means that they took paper candidates and cold calling people and actually accepted foreign nationals as their candidates. Rather than doing that, they thought we'd retain our credibility and, focus on the general election. But because they're not on the ballot, you can only vote for an immigrant from Reform or pro-immigration English people from the other parties. Reform is now just another colour of Uniparty. And we can see this, again, across everywhere. This is Southampton. Can you spot which of these candidates aren't like the others? So we've got Ross Mould, we've got Sarah Powell-Vaughan, we've got David Chapman, we've got Kevin Masters, John Edwards, Ryan Collett, Bruce Robinson, Dionysios Alkivdivazis Steas, sorry for butchering that, Stelios, Soham Bandyopahe, Philip Crook, Paul Chant, Phil Small, Tim Kiff Munns, who is a man who's just never outgrown his twink phase, clearly, Kurosh Shadmand, Tresios Chitsika, and Toriola Coca. Can you spot which of these candidates aren't like the others? I mean, okay, sure, Greek chap, okay, like legal migrant, naturalised, shouldn't be eligible to be a politician in my country at the local level, as an MP. Again, I like the Greeks, civilizationally proximate. We've got a lot of their philosophy, and also I really admire their architecture and their food. But just as I shouldn't be able to go to Greece and become a politician in Greece, Greek people shouldn't be able to come over to Britain and become politicians in Britain, even if you've been given a passport by the government. Again, I'm sure he's a really nice bloke, but on principle, the risk for allowing people who are born overseas into our political system to then use our politics to advantage their ethnic in-group, their foreign religion, or their own nation, giving them preferential treatment in trade deals or foreign affairs or even immigration policy. It's just too great. And so the hypothetical of being able to poach an excellent politician from overseas is outweighed by the, not just risk, but the actual unfolding events in Parliament at the moment, where we have the sons and daughters of India, Pakistan and Bangladesh all lobbying for more liberal migration policy to import more of their ethnic kin and countrymen from their respective countries. So, sorry, we should just ban this. We should just ban it. Anyone, at the very least, who is not born here, which will probably be the constitutional settlement that's made, but anyone who doesn't have any British ancestry, English, Scottish, Welsh and Irish, I think that would be a totally fair standard to say you shouldn't be eligible to be a politician. And that's fine. I wouldn't expect to be a politician in Greece. Reform, though, disagrees, because they're running this woman, Tresios Chitsika, and they announce from her statement that she's been a CEO for 23 years, growing her business across 2 counties and building strong relationships within local communities. Should we see what her business is? Her businesses are care worker sector businesses. So, the Boris wave came over using the health and social care visa, dropped out, brought loads of dependents, and not only took money from the NHS, but also, of course, had those dependents take out more in taxes than they put in. So they cost us loads of money and exploited the care worker visa system. She's one of the people that set up the businesses that allowed them to do that. And then, if you look under her nationality, she's from Zimbabwe. She's not a British citizen from Zimbabwe. She is from Zimbabwe. This woman is a Reform UK council candidate, and she is a Zimbabwean national. Why? Why is this chap, Toriola Coca, who seems to be some sort of Nigerian business coach, why is he a candidate when, as my friend Charlie Downs points out, on his company's house page, he is a Nigerian national? Why are Reform UK running Zimbabwean, Bangladeshi, Nigerian, and, of course, Indian nationals as well? Why are they running Aaron Roy, who is not just an Indian national, but runs a non-whites-only football team, received diversity awards, and after defecting from the Labour Party, after his handshake and fireworks on stage with Farage, said that his values haven't changed. So he is just moving over to reform so he can lobby for his own ethnic interests and use DEI to advance his career more efficiently, more safely. Which means that immigrants, DEI grifters, are seeing reform as the more DEI-friendly party, despite their promises to end all DEI. Because in practice, this is just DEI. Farage has never met a minority he does not want to propel to the top of reform, stand on stage with and have his photo taken with, in order to deflect accusations of racism. As George Madgwick says, we have to select these people, these foreign nationals, because it means that we won't be seen as racist. Well, I'm sorry, I don't care what I get called. I don't care if I'm called racist by Emily Maitlis and the BBC and Laura Koonsberg and Sky News and ITV and Channel 4 and all of these smear merchants that have used that slur to ensure that nobody looks too closely at the settlement of mass immigration and multiculturalism and all the costs and crimes that it inflicts. And so the atrocities just go on without any scrutiny, without any accountability. I don't care if you call me racist. I think that we should be able to represent ourselves, our people, our preferences, our prejudices in our own political system, in our own country. And that is a completely reasonable expectation before this bogeyman of the far right and racism and, oh, you're being a bit mean, became ubiquitous. Before our entire political system became focused on not offending minorities. I don't care if you're offended. You have countries that represent you, your people, and your interests. If you want to be a politician, piss off there and go and see if you can get elected. You shouldn't be eligible to do it in mine. And you shouldn't be eligible to leverage the media that wants to see the native population robbed of their own country against the political party that's purportedly trying to regain possession of that country to advantage yourself. It's infuriating. There's also this candidate here from Bangladesh, and he does his Facebook posts in Bangladeshi. So you remember Reform was saying that, you know, not speaking English is kind of a barrier to integration. We're worried about sectarianism in Gorton and Denton. Well, you're running Bangladeshi candidates. Like, not just Bangladeshi nationals, but also people that don't even do their campaigning in English. It's insane. And also, because the vetting procedures are so poor, they accepted this chap, Mason Humberson, from the Labour Party. He defected. And at the time, it was pointed out, and Lewis Bragpool from Restore Britain is now following this up, that he has been a member of not just the Labour Party and the GMB Union, but the Fabian Society. So, he is a Fabian socialist, he is in Reform, he seems to have retained his membership of the Fabian Society while in Reform, and as Lewis says, he's contacted Reform HQ for comment, whether they were aware of his Fabian membership at the time of defection, whether this is compatible with Reform and their values, or if any action will be taken. And so far, no response. So if you vote Reform, you're going to get literal foreigners, people who campaign in Bengali, people who call you racist when you say we shouldn't have foreigners in the party standing as our politicians, because, you know, the entire point of the party is to reduce the number of foreigners in the country, and actual Fabian socialists who are subverting the party from within. Like, what's the point? Like, is this what you voted for? Is this what you wanted? This endless procession. Okay, Mohammed Sharia is a joke, but all the rest of them are real. The endless procession of just random members of the Indian subcontinent who are using Reform to farm Izzat. Is this the purpose of Reform? Well, clearly not, according to Farage, because he promised to stop them from voting. After Gorton and Denton, he said, we're going to ban Commonwealth citizens from voting in elections. So then why did you pick them as candidates, Nigel? If you don't want them voting, why do you think they should be eligible to be Reform councillors? You should have just said, at the very least, you need to be a British national to be a Reform UK candidate. But you didn't. And so, this is the core problem with Reform. They can say whatever they like, but, as Rupert's fond of saying, watch what the hands are doing, not what the mouth is saying. and the hands are pushing forward Zimbabwean, Bangladeshi, Nigerian and Indian nationals for you to vote for, while promising that they're going to ban those people from voting, let alone standing as candidates. So what Reform actually do is their party platform, and what they actually do is to allow foreigners access to our political system and to rule over you, to have power over you. Now that's a curse in the Bible. That is a hallmark of tyranny all the way back to Aristotle. But apparently, Reform thinks it is necessary to do this so that Nigel Farage does not get called mean names on Question Time. Just complete cowardice. This is aiding and abetting our dispossession from our own country, our own political system, and the inability for us to just represent ourselves. I'm sorry, I'm just not playing by this paradigm. And the other thing that was suspect from Reform as well is Zia Yusuf, Mohammed Zia Yusuf, announced that he would block visas for countries that demand slavery reparations. Zia Yusuf put out a list of these countries. Let's see if you can spot what's missing. Antigua and Barbuda, Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Dominica, Ghana, Grenada, Guyana, Haiti, Jamaica, Kenya, Montserrat, Nigeria, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago. Not Sri Lanka. Or India or Pakistan, but not Sri Lanka, which is Zia Yusuf's nation of origin, because his parents are Sri Lankan immigrants. Why is Sri Lanka not on there, Zia? It's because he doesn't want to be ostracized from his family dinners, or the iftars that he apparently attends. So this is the issue of having immigrants in your party. They might, hypothetically, be incredible politicians, experts on certain fields. And there are some who will defer to the host majority, their culture, their way of doing things, and will say, yeah, obviously I'm a guest in this country and I'm grateful to be here, and so I shouldn't have power and I shouldn't have veto over what you want to do in your own country. And hey, I'm happy for those people to be here. They're a very, very small number, if I may stress. But what ends up happening, in effect, is inviting a vegan to the barbecue. And they complain there's no vegan option. And over time, often, someone in the family will argue that everyone has to go vegan to accommodate the one person who doesn't eat meat. Over time, you will start finding inexplicable exceptions to your immigration restriction that benefit one group, one country, one religion. And it's just not worth having. The other reason, by the way, that this is happening is because they're trying to triangulate to encourage a Tory pact. Note that this article was planted by James Heal in The Spectator, which is the house magazine of the Conservatives, supervised by Michael Gove, but of course is owned by Paul Marshall, who is one of the lead investors in GB News, where Nigel Farage has a show, is a shareholder. Paul Marshall apparently introduced Zia Yusuf to Nigel Farage. So they're trying to bring the two parties together, to unite the right. And I know these conversations are going on behind the scenes, and despite what some Conservative politicians may say in public, or the pretense that Reform are out to destroy the Tories, they always think it's inevitable. You hear all these whispers around Westminster. It's also noted in here, by the way, that they couldn't find enough candidates ahead of the 9th deadline, and it notes that Reform even cold-called one bemused Lib Dem councillor in Bromley, urging him to be a paper candidate. So, with both sides desperate to project strength, the deadline for nomination papers has taken on added importance. You could have just retained your credibility by standing fewer candidates. And allowed other parties to fall on their swords when doing things as Reform did, and it's now blown up in their face, like promising to lower council tax without realising that there's a lot of local budget spending that is mandated by Parliament, and you have to be the party of government to repeal that legislation in order to reduce the spending that councils have to do. And also, then you don't pick people who are going to give the party a bad name, like the woman leading Kent County Council, who is of Indian extraction, argued that we need more visas for care workers, so basically more of the Boris wave, and was on a Zoom call like berating her colleagues like some insufferable HR harridan over the fact that they wanted to keep their campaign promise, as much as Farage says that they didn't make that promise, of reducing council tax. And instead she said, well, we have to raise it. And that led to the defectors from Kent County Council from Reform to Restore on principle. So, welcome aboard, patriots. But what the substance of this article, the most interesting part, is pursuant to a pact with the Tories, Heel writes, the manifesto of 2024 has been binned. Full fat nationalisation is out, save for British steel and key strategic industries. Reformers obviously pledged to keep the Bank of England independent and retain the Office for Budget Responsibility, which means it's going to be impossible to either cut taxes, welfare, or reduce immigration. And they're going to keep the triple lock. As one Tory observes, we are all Sunakites now. So reform has continentally drifted by taking in too many Tory defectors, by caving to pressure and accusations of racism and bigotry and being too far right and needing to appeal to this mythical centre ground. They have drifted towards the Tory position, and the Tories admit that on matters of culture and immigration, they have been forced to talk about the issue, even though they're not comfortable doing so and don't want to actually do anything about it, because one Tory MP says, this change of direction is a model of market forces. Quote, we would not have got into such a robust place on migration, identity, crime and Islam without the threat from the right. I mean, the fact that Tories think they're in a robust place on any of those issues shows just how deluded they are. They have no credibility to clean up the mess they made. They should not be rewarded for their treachery. They should be punished. But so should reform, because they're actively trying to make a coalition with the Tories at the next election, because they feel it's necessary to unite the right, and in doing so, they have filled their party with foreigners, actual foreign nationals, and they're telling you to vote reform, get Starmer out, reduce immigration, reverse the Boris wave, and the people on the ballot that they have chosen are the Boris wave. Just ridiculous. They're also Tories. As James Hill points out, there's now 4 Tories, that's Henry Smith, Jonathan Gullis, Damien Moore and Marco Longhi, 4 ex-Tory MPs standing in the local elections. Reform, destroy the Tories by electing the Tories and the Boris wave the Tories brought in. No, 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 no. Total clear out. They cannot be rewarded for their treachery. And I think, as Carl Benjamin recently said to Dan in one of their political chats on Lotus Caesar's excellent series, I think the public are seeing, as with every gourmet meal, the first bite is with the eyes. And so they're seeing a procession of failed, rejected, recycled Tories, the soft policies that they had hoped reform would rebel against, and foreigners, and so have grown disillusioned with it. And that's why, in Politico's aggregated poll, as you can see, if you go back to 2 years, just around the time of the general election, reform were about 10 to 15% leading up to the general election. This is when Farage had come back. And then they peaked at about 30%, 31% there, and they have steadily declined ever since. And they have steadily declined since the start of this year, when you started having the Tory defectors. When you had Nadim Zahawi, Robert Jenrick, Suella Braverman. Now, you might think that one of those defectors is better than the others. Nevertheless, the public who voted reform to punish the Tories at the last elections are glad the Tories are out and now want to also get Starmer out, do not want to vote for the same Tories. And so, reform's flaws are too baked in at this point. They have too many foreigners as candidates. They have too many Tories in their senior positions. They have committed to too many inadequate policies that will keep the blob, the civil service, in control, that will mean they won't be able to keep any of their promises, and their actual actions contravene everything they say. We're going to ban foreigners from voting, but we will stand them as candidates. We're going to ban nations who demand reparations from coming into Britain, except the nations that our own Home Secretary in waiting happens to be from. And this is why they've lost credibility. This is why they're losing support. And this is why Restore Britain is now at 4% when not prompted in YouGov polls, and at about 7 to 8% in Find Out Now polls, only a few weeks after registering. About 2 months after announcing they were going to become a national political party. And they're the alternative. And they're a clear alternative. Because Rupert Lowe says, I see Reformer bizarrely standing a foreign national from Zimbabwe as a candidate according to official records. Restore Britain would ban foreigners from standing and voting in British elections. British elections for British people. And if you can't speak our language, you shouldn't be standing for election. In fact, you shouldn't even be living in Britain. Reform thinks that their candidates should be able to campaign in Bengali. Rupert Lowe thinks if you can't speak English, you shouldn't be in the country. So, even though you can't unless you're in Great Yarmouth. Vote for a Restore Britain candidate or a Great Yarmouth First candidate at the local elections, and hey, vote in your area, whichever way it makes sense. When it comes to the general election, if you don't want a party full of foreigners, if you want a party that's going to put the British people first, if you want a party that can define who the British people are, well, then you know who to vote for.